Welcome to another wonderful session in our Python developer course. In this course, we are mastering Python for real. We are learning Python, we are mastering it, and our goal is to make sure that any loophole in Python that you have not been able to fill, you go back and fill it. And so this time we are going back to some of the lessons and exploring them some more. And we are going to be working on certain challenges that will allow us to practice them more and get more practical experience because Python is really important and there are a lot of work we are going to be doing with Python in the next few months. And so let's make sure we learn really, really hard. And in your career, Python is going to be a major tool for you. And one thing we want to do here at Rate Africa is to make sure that you have mastered Python. Yes, you have to be very confident in Python and know it really, really well. Yes, so we don't want you to remain a beginner. We want you to be really confident and move to advanced levels using Python. And I want to give you one short motivational message. It says, work hard in silence and let your success be the noise. Work hard in silence and let your success be the noise. Sometimes you don't have to tell anyone what you are working on. Sometimes it's not about what people are seeing. You do, but in secret, work hard. I know most of you are working hard. I know it. Yes. Your success will be the noise. Your success will be the light that will shine, and it will shine so much that you cannot be ignored. So let's work hard in silence. When no one is there, let's be training. When others are sleeping, let's be training. Let's be learning. Let's be learning. Yes, I was telling the data students that before you do machine learning, do human learning. If you see how neural networks work and how machine learning algorithms and deep learning algorithms, neural networks, how they learn from data, it's interesting. And it is designed to operate like a human brain. Okay. And so let's train our brain. Let's train our brain to learn. Let's train ourselves to learn. Let's teach ourselves to learn. Yes. All the great successful people, they work hard in silence. When others are sleeping, they are training and they will succeed. And I'm here to tell you that you will succeed. Keep learning hard. When you are learning and no one is even recognizing you, no one is even seeing what you are doing, you will make it. Yes. And I know your hard work will never be in vain. All right. So this is me. And today's lesson is about string methods in Python. We are here to master string methods. We had a string method or string lesson during the bootcamp, but this is part 2 of that lesson. And we are going to learn more about string methods and master it. All right. And this particular lesson is very, very important. There are a lot of methods in Python strings that we have to really understand because there are a lot of problems that you just need to use the right string method to solve. This lesson will run this week and next week, and we will cover all the important string methods that we are supposed to cover. Today, we'll begin with one category of string methods. I believe you already know it, just a few that we will add, and we will set the foundation to add more. Yeah, so today's class may be a little short, but next week we are going to be adding more and we are going to cover all the important ones. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to solve complex coding challenges using string methods and efficiently manipulate, format, and analyze text to reinforce learning. Reinforce learning. If you can hear me, if I'm audible, please type reinforce learning. Reinforce learning in the chat. Reinforce learning. Sometimes you know something already, but you need to reinforce it. You need to push it down. You need to let it get into your subconscious, Yes, I've been a Python beginner. I've also been an advanced Python developer, and I've seen the learning journey. Sometimes you learn something, and if you don't do anything about it, you realize that you completely forget it. Okay, you completely forget it. So unless you reinforce learning, some things that you have already learned, you will lose them. So we need to reinforce learning. Thank you very much. And I'm going to begin with a simple recap of what we know about strings and string manipulations, and then we'll dive deep into the string methods. All right. So what is a string? Let's start with that. What is a string? Anyone can answer this question. Just put it in the chat. This is a question. What is a string? To you, what is a string in Python? Let me see your answers. Let me see what you think. And someone says sequence of characters. Thank you. Yeah, Pandy. Someone says combination of characters. I like that. I like that. I like that. A sequence of characters. Wow. Wow. That's wonderful. Yeah. So there's a lot to understand about Python strings. We remember the data types. We remember, who can tell me all the data types? If you remember them, please put them in the chat so that we reinforce learning. Tell me about the data types in Python. Let's just refresh our memories. Any sequence of characters and closing quotes. Thank you, Lucretia. Great to see you, Lucretia. Someone says numbers. Okay, so we have string, we have floats, we have integers, we have Boolean, we have bool. Of course, bool is Boolean. We have strings, and we have, all right, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So these are the basic data types. And although Afemi has added lists, tuples, dictionaries, and sets, that's wonderful. All these are data types. All right. All these are data types. And these data types operate differently with the system. All right. All these data types, they go down to computer architecture, they go down to memory architecture and memory management, and they are handled differently. So when we talk about strings, strings refer to a sequence of characters, all right? A sequence of characters. We know strings to be text, but as Python developers, we understand it more than simply text. Although strings refer to text, they are a sequence of characters, which means every character in the string is actually treated differently or separately. Let me use the word separately. Every character stands on its own, and these characters are put together in a sequence. All right. In Python, there's something that we refer to as a sequence. A sequence usually contains multiple items together, like a list. A list is a sequence. This is why you can run a loop on a sequence. So anytime we are running a loop, we run the loop on a sequence because the sequence has multiple items. That is why on tuples, on sets, on dictionaries, we can run loops on them. Okay, a string is like that. With strings, Python treats every character as a different entity. This is why we can use indexing to index every single character in it. So the understanding that you should have at this level is that a string is actually a sequence of characters. They are not just texts as in text, they are sequence of characters. So think about each character in the sequence. Now we understand that strings are enclosed in quotes, and in Python, you can enclose your strings in either single quotes or double quotes. All right, any of them works. Any of them works. Yes. In our previous lesson, we said there are some cases you can use, you are supposed to use double quotes, and some cases you are supposed to use single quotes. And we also mentioned that we have escape characters that you can use to escape those situations. And so you can actually choose to use single quotes and double quotes. This is just a quick recap. And in Python, strings are represented as str. We call it str or string. When you see str, you can pronounce it as string or str, if you like, for short. Now, we also have what is called multi-line strings in Python, and multi-line strings are simply strings or text that extends across multiple lines. So with multi-line strings, we use it in programs where we need to provide multiple lines of text, and this is really, really useful. There are some important Python programs that you need to store or you need to transfer multiple lines of text, and you need to use what we call multi-line strings. Now, when we say multi-line strings, who can tell me how we enclose multi-line strings? I know everyone here remembers everything about what we are learning now, but I just want to ask, and I want us to just refresh our memories on these things. All right, so thank you, Bernardine. Thank you, Bernardine. All right. Okay. So in Python, we have normal strings, and we can have the word hello, single quotes, double quotes, and we can have multi-line strings. And multi-line strings, you can use triple single quote like this, and then you put your message in here, or you can use triple double quotes. All right, so you can say something like hello, all right, so this is a message that you may want to put in your Python program. Listen, you may not have encountered this before, but it happens. Sometimes you need to have a whole message sent across through your application, and you need to store it in what we call multi-line strings. In multi-line string, we use either single triple quotes or double triple quotes, double triple quotes. And if you start with double triple quotes, you need to end with double triple quotes. And if you start with single triple quotes, you need to end with the same as well. All right. Okay, so this is an example here. It says Python 2 is discontinued. It's recommended to use Python 3. And this is a multi-line string that extends across multiple lines. So we all know these things already. And when it comes to manipulating strings, we understand that because it's a sequence, we can do a whole lot of manipulation on it. We can run a loop over the sequence. We can use the in keyword to find if a particular character is within the sequence. We can do a whole lot. We can concatenate strings. Okay, I believe you remember string concatenation. You can concatenate strings. You can put two strings together. And what is the operator we use to concatenate strings in Python? What is the operator we use to concatenate strings in Python? That's a plus. Thank you. All right. So when I run this right now, I'm going to get yes. I'm getting yes here because we are dealing with a sequence. You know, whenever you are dealing with a sequence, there are a lot of operations that you can perform on the sequence. So over here, we are using the in keyword to find a character. You see, so because this is a sequence, it doesn't treat this as hello. To the computer memory, this is not treated as hello. This is treated as Hello. They are characters that are together. So I can search for a single character. I can run a loop on this. All right. So we can say for character in our text, print the character. All right. When we run this, we are going to see that all the characters are going to be printed. So this tells you that it's a sequence. It's a sequence. A list is also a sequence. And with the concept of indexing that we all remember, this means we can actually target each character within the sequence by using their unique index position. And we understand this already. This is just a quick recap. I don't know why Bernardine is showing here. And the first letter in Bernardine, if you use the index of 0, I never knew that Bernardine would show here. If you use the index 0, what do you think will display? What do you think will display? What do you think will display? All right, so that is very, very good. So let's say first name is equal to Bernardine, and we want to target the first letter, So we'll create a variable called first letter. And this first letter is from, let me just call this name. So the name index 0. And when we print our first letter, we will see what we get. We get B. All right. So this is very, very important. And for you to be technical, you need to start seeing things this way. And how do I target the last character here? Everybody knows this. How do I target the last letter? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes. So this is very, very important. Thank you. And once we run this, we'll see that we'll get the E. And this also leads us into the concept of slicing. And we want to slice Benin out of this. Who can give us the code to get our first slice? Our first slice. We want to slice Benin out of this. What is the code? The code to slice Benin out of Bernardine? Because in Ghana, there are some people we call them Benin. I don't know the full name, but maybe Benedicta or something, but we call them Benin. So, all right. So someone says we should write name index. Okay, so we start with index 0 to 4. And we know that 0 refers to the first character. And when we say 4, it is going to count up to the 4th index. All right. Now, the 4 tells you, first of all, that you are going to get 4 characters. So when we print the slice, we are going to get Benin as we want. And there are 4 characters, you saw it. But then when you check the indexing, this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. So the 4th one should be the D. So why is the D not showing? And we have up to here. Why is the D not showing? I'm sure everybody knows this already. Yes. In slicing, when it comes to slicing, I'm just waiting to see what someone is going to type. It says the last character is excluded. Okay, so this is very, very important. The last character is excluded. And so since we know that this is the last character and it will be excluded, we need to include it here, or we need to state it here as in index 4, knowing that it will be excluded and we will get this. This is just a concept or a rule in slicing that you shouldn't forget. Just don't forget it. That is how slicing works in Python. You can also ignore the index, and when you don't enter anything, it simply means you are fetching from the beginning. So when we run this, we are going to get the same output. And the same applies to the ending index. If you remove this, what it means is that it is starting from the beginning and it will end at the very last character. So we are going to get the full name. And we need to understand that when these manipulations are done on our string, it doesn't affect the original string. It doesn't affect the original string. It is a copy of a string that we have actually stored in a different variable. So it doesn't affect it. Yes, it doesn't affect it. So let's move on and we'll talk more about that. All right. So first letter, last letter, slicing. And we just talked about slicing. And this is something that we really remember. When it comes to strings, we need to remember that strings are immutable. When we say strings are immutable, what does it mean when we say strings are immutable? What does it mean when we say strings are immutable? Who can tell me what it means when we say it is immutable? All right, so Newman says cannot be changed. So thank you very much. So strings are immutable, meaning their values cannot be changed after creation. They cannot be changed. So when you create the object string, it remains in memory. It cannot be changed. It is just like that, just like tuples, it cannot be changed. Someone says, why is it that some objects can be mutable and some are immutable? They are immutable because they were designed that way for special use cases. All right, so a tuple was created to be immutable so that in cases where you need to have an object that cannot change, you use a tuple. A list is mutable. It was designed that way so that if you need such an object, you can use it. All right, so this is very, very important. And it means when you create a string, it remains in memory. All right, so we understand that, and we want to get into string methods. All right, so Python provides several built-in functions in its standard library that enable you to perform a wide range of operations on strings. All right, so when it comes to strings are objects or classes that are defined in the standard library. And Python has a lot of functions that allow you to perform operations on strings. There are a lot of Python problems and Python challenges that knowing how to effectively operate on strings will be the solution to those problems. There are a lot of problems that you only need to understand how to use string methods and functions to solve. And so this is a very important lesson that I want us to revisit and master them. So in the next two lessons, we are going to explore very, very important functions and methods in strings. All right, I'm going to begin with a short quiz, and I'm going to display the question here, and you tell me what the answer is. So the first one, which of the following functions can be used to determine the length of a string, of the string hello in Python? Which of the following functions can be used? Some will not even let me finish reading. They are already telling me the answer. Okay. And everyone got it correct. The answer is B. So we understand that this is a function, and it's very, very good that we understand it so well. It is a function that counts all the characters in a string, and it even counts the spaces. You know, when we say strings refer to a sequence of characters, when we say string refers to a sequence of characters, what we need to understand is that even space is a character in a string. So if you count the characters in this particular string, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And so if you call the len function and you apply it to your string, you can print it. And when you do, you are going to get 11. This means it included the spaces as well. So this particular len function, it counts every character in the string, including the spaces. And this question here is very, very important because we want to know the difference between a function and a string. Sorry, a function and a method. All right. Because we are talking about string methods, and all of a sudden we are mentioning functions and functions. So what in the world is the difference between a function and a string? Okay. What's the difference between a function and a string? And that is going to be the next question. It says, what is the main difference between functions and methods in Python? Functions and methods, not functions and strings, but functions and methods. All right. So I brought this question for us to throw some light on functions and methods. I know everyone here knows all of these already. We just want to recap and refresh our memories on them. So who can tell me without doing any search? I don't want to get a search output. Just tell me what do you think is the main difference between functions and methods in Python? What is the main difference? Who can tell me that? Between functions and methods in Python. Okay. So I'm waiting for someone to type. Okay. All right. So the example we looked at, is this a method or is a function? Okay. Thank you, Lois. Thank you, Lois. Thank you, Lois. I like that. All right. So this particular example or this particular question and the answer we selected as len, this len, is it a function or is a method? Again, we are talking about string methods. All of a sudden, we are mentioning functions and functions and functions and functions and functions and functions. Okay. At the end of the day, what we are going to learn about the difference between functions and methods is that they are all functions. Okay. Functions are functions and methods are also functions. Okay, that's the first point. But then there is a difference. What we looked at here is a function, not a method per se. This is a function because let's look at the meaning here. Functions operate independently, while methods are associated to specific objects. That's why I said I like the answer from Lois. Functions operate independently. What does it mean? All right. So functions are blocks of code that perform specific tasks that are stored somewhere in the standard library or imported as a module or created with a def keyword and exist within your code and can be called to perform an operation. There are a lot of functions we don't define ourselves, like the print function, you don't define it. So let's forget about defining functions or defining anything at all. These functions are called to operate independently. This means you can just call the print function independently and use it. The learn function can be called independently and use it, and you use it. Learn function doesn't only work on strings. What else can it work on? The learn function. What else can it work on? Who can tell me? What else can the learn work on? It can work on list. Thank you, Robly. Good to see you, Robly. I was looking out for you. It can work on lists. It can work on other data types, okay? So it's not specifically associated with strings, not per se. It can work on tuples. So it works independently. What do we mean by it works independently? When it comes to a method is a function that is associated with a particular object or a particular class or a particular data type, okay? When we get into classes, then you are going to see how we are going to be creating methods, okay? We too will create methods. For now, we've never created a method in our Python classes. All that we have done is to create functions. What are we saying? When you define a function, it is independent and it can be called at any time to function because it's a function. But a method has a local scope. Last time we mentioned about the scope of variables, and I asked whether this variable is local or global, and you were able to tell me that some were local and global because of where they found themselves. The local ones found themselves within a particular object. For example, when we defined a function, and we created variables within the functions, those variables were local to those functions. What that means is that those variables cannot be used outside those functions. That same way, we have what we call classes in Python, and we'll get there. We'll get there as we advance in Python. When you define a class, you can create a function within the class. That function becomes local to that class. This means that function cannot be used outside of that class. It is local. Any function that can be used outside of a specific class is not called a method, it's called a function. But any function that is local to a class, again, we'll learn about classes very soon. Any function that is local to a class is called a method and can only be used when the class is instantiated as an object. So in object-oriented programming, you will learn that we define classes or we create classes. And before we create a class, we need to, before we use the class, okay, after we create the class, define all the attributes and methods, we need to call an object or create an object of the class. All right. So when the class is defined, for you to use the class, we no longer call it a class. We call it an object. Let me give you an example. When it comes to strings, strings have specific functions that only operate on strings. Those functions do not operate on integers, do not operate on other data types in Python. Because they are associated with strings, we call them methods. Because they belong to strings. You can only see them and use them when you are dealing with a string. If you are not dealing with a string, you cannot use them. That same way, when you are dealing with a list, there are some functions that are associated with lists because a list is a class, was defined as a class. We didn't define it, so we don't see it, but a list is a class and it has functions or methods associated with it. All right. That is why when we call strings, we look at the methods that belongs to strings. Let's come here and try one example here. And over here, let me come back here. This print is, you can use it anytime you want. This is a function. It's an independent function. The len can be used independently anytime you want. All right. The type can be used anytime you want. It's a function. But if you want to use a method, you have to call this before you can use the method. For example, you have to say greeting dots before you see the methods. Now, these methods are also functions, but they are not independent functions. For example, you can see capitalize, you can see lower, title, strip, split, upper. These are functions, all right, but they are only associated with strings because we are dealing with strings. When we change this from a string into a list, let's see if we'll see them again. Are they the same? Are they the same? Yes or no? They are not the same. They are not the same. So the point here is that they are functions that only operate when we are dealing with strings. And they are functions that only operate when we are dealing with lists. When you are dealing with something else, like a dictionary, you can see the functions have changed already. Just by inputting this, I've changed the data type. Okay, so these are functions that are associated with specific objects. And so they are called methods. They are called methods. Technically, they are called methods. And when we say a method, we are talking about a function, all right, but belongs to a particular object. If anyone doesn't understand, you can tell me and I'll repeat it. But if you understand, let me know in the chat if you understand it. Let me know in the chat if you get it. I know that most of you understand this already, but we are just revising, and there are some people who are now getting a deeper understanding. So, Robly, thank you. Ruben, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. So in Python, thank you, Lucretia. Thank you. Functions are independent blocks of code that can be called on their own and applied to various data types, like the len function or the print function or the input function. All right. On the other hand, methods are functions. They are also functions. To create a method, you have to use the same def. You have to use the same def. It's also a function. But what makes it a method? What makes it a method? We use def to create methods. We use def to create functions. So they are all functions, but why do we call these ones methods? Because when we create the second def that we are calling methods, they are created as children of another object. They are children of another object. Okay, when we are defining a normal function, a regular function, they are not children to anything. We just write our def and we define it. But a time will come, you have to create a class, and under the class, you create a child function that belongs to that class. That child function is a function, all right. It is defined the same way a function is defined. But then because it is a child of a class, we call it a method. Okay, and I've been using class and object interchangeably. When you are defining it, we call it a class. When you are using it, we call it an object. Okay, so we'll get to that and we will learn about that as well. All right, so methods are functions that are associated with specific objects and must be called using the words. Who can see my screen? They must, I like the word must be called using what? I like that. I like that. I like that. So in our previous lesson, we studied about calling functions, okay? Defining the function and calling. You see, when you are calling a regular function, you just call it by name and it works. If it requires argument, you provide argument. If it doesn't require argument, you don't provide. But a method, although it's a function, it can only be called with a dot notation. And they typically operate on the object they belong to. That is why I gave you an example here. You have to say greeting dot before you can call it. So this is a function. This item is a function, all right, but it belongs to this object here that we have assigned to this variable and we are using here. If I change this to a string, like this hello world, this function is no longer valid. Okay, who can tell me why this function or this method is no longer valid? Let me call it a function right now. It's a function. Why is this function no longer valid? Why is it no longer valid? Okay. Okay, because it is not associated with strings. I like that. It is not associated with strings. It doesn't belong to strings. I like that. You see, so everyone understands this. So what is it associated with? What is it associated with? A dictionary. Thank you so much. Now it's easy. You see, so we can't use it now. We have to call the dot notation again before we will see these methods. So these methods are the ones we are really going to pay attention to and understand them because they are the key to solving a lot of problems, especially this one here, join. Join. It is really, really important. It's really, really important. And it is used to solve a lot of problems. Join. Yes. And we have strip, we have split, we have all of these. Case fold. Case fold. And today we'll talk about case fold. And let me see one that I'll mention. Yes. So there are some important ones that you really, really need to understand. Okay, we have swap case. We have swap case and we have case fold. All right. So this is now clear. So today's lesson it's about functions that belongs to strings. So these are called string methods. Okay, they are called string methods. All right. So now let's talk about string methods, and we will begin with the first introduction, which again all of you know, but just to set a foundation for us to be able to go deeper. We want to refresh our memories on the ones we already know, and then we will go deeper and we are going to be using very, very important ones like the join for you to understand how to use it because there are a lot of problems that If you don't use join, you cannot solve. All right, so let's begin. Let's begin. Okay. So we will start with changing case methods. Everyone knows about changing case methods. Methods that are used to change case. So I'm going to list them here. So we have the upper, and this upper converts characters to uppercase. Everybody knows this. It's not necessary for me to even try an example. So let's come here and let's put let's call this text. And we have this text here called hello world. And we want to apply the upper method. So we have to say text and then the dot notation. Then we type upper, which will come from this list. All right. And what this upper will do is to convert all characters to uppercase. So we can choose to print this. And again, what has happened to this upper or this particular string now is different from the original string. So I'm going to print the string.upper. And when you run it, you can see that it has converted it to uppercase. And I'm also going to print the string itself. And you can see that this is stored separately from the original string. So the original string is not impacted. So the original string is still there. The modified one is stored in a different memory location, and you can choose to put it in a variable or just print it like that. All right, so that is upper. We already know this. And then we also have the lower. It converts all characters to lowercase. So this, you can see that this is not in lowercase at all. As a matter of fact, I can say hello world and just use dot lower. And once I say dot lower, everything will turn to lowercase. All of you know it. And you can see that the original one is not impacted. So this is the original one that I'm printing here. Let me remove it. And we have dot lower. Now, this dot lower is very important. It helps to solve a lot of problems because let's assume you are taking an input, like you are taking an input, you are taking an input from a user. So let's call this a word, and you are taking an input from the user, okay? Let's just put here, enter the word, okay? All right. Instead of word, let me just put something else. Name, enter the name. All right. When you ask people to input, what is going to happen is that some people are going to input, first of all, their name, like Bernardine. Others will input their name as Bernardine, like this. All right. Sometimes in a program, you may want to compare the inputs. Okay, let's call this name 1 and let's call this name 2 with the same input. And let's check if they are the same. So if name 1 is equal to name 2, then print they are the same. Else print different. Now, when you run this and somebody inputs name 1 as Bernardine, another person inputs as Bernardine, are they the same? Yes or no? Are they the same? It's saying different. It's saying different. Now, it is important for us to learn about this particular method because we can use it to solve a lot of problems. okay, we can use it to solve a lot of problems. For example, if we have, let's say, okay, let's use it first. If we say name1 dot lower and name2 dot lower now, what we are saying is that we've captured name1 here, we've captured name2 here, but check if name1 dot lower. This means after you capture name1, apply the dot lower method to it. If it is the same as after you capture name2, apply the lower method to that one as well. This means force all of them to become lower. Now, when we run and we enter Benedine and Benedine, what do you think? Would they be the same or different? Would they be the same or different? Okay, so this time they are the same. So although they were typed differently, we have used lower to force all of them into a particular case so that we can compare. Let's say there is a password. This name1 is a password. And this password is stored somewhere in a database. And the password is Benedine. Okay. And over here, they ask you to enter the password. They ask you to enter the password. Let me remove the dot lower here. So this is password. If password is equal to name2, is equal to name2, or let's type input or user password. User password. If password is original password and user password. If password is equal to user password, then say access granted, or they are the same. Else, they are different. When we run this and someone enters Benedine like this, we will see that they are different. Okay, so in a real world project, you may want to compare some text. Okay, well, you may want to compare. And the particular text is in one particular case, and the users are also inputting in a different case. For example, someone can say B in lowercase like this. When you run this, let me run it again. Someone can say B like this. When you run this, it's different. But to solve this, as developers, we can force the original to become lower and force the user input to also become lower. And so what is happening now is that we have made all of them lower. So this time, when you type the password like this, it will still work. They are the same because we have forced all of them to lower before comparing. If you type the password in any way, in all caps, it will still work. Okay, so this is very important, and this lower, we use it a lot. And I'm stressing on it because of another method we are going to discover. Now, when you say title, title capitalizes the first letter of each word. It capitalizes the first letter of each word. All right, so if we have, let's say, our text as hello world, and we say text dot title, and we print it, we are going to see that the first letter of each word is capitalized. All right, maybe we provided it that way. Let's make all of them lowercase, and we will see that it will do the same because it capitalizes the first letters of each word. So this particular dot title is really, really important. Then we have capitalize, and it capitalizes the first letter of the string and makes all other letters lowercase. So you can see here that we use the title and it converted it to a title case, just like somebody's name or a book title or any title. You can also use capitalize, and if you use capitalize method, only the first letter will be capitalized and all the words that follow will be in lowercase. So just like a sentence. So if you want to apply a case to a sentence, you use capitalize. All right. So I want you to tell me how many methods, string methods, we just talked about. Let me see in the chat how many string methods we have just seen. Okay, let me see that in the chat. Okay. Thank you very, very much. Okay, thank you. I like that. So someone should list the 4 string methods talked about. And this is setting the foundation for what we are going to be learning. Thank you, Rubin. So we've covered upper, lower, title, and capitalize. Yes, and all of these, you should understand them and know how to implement them in real projects. Thank you, Amon. Yes, and we use the dots, and you can see that they all have the parentheses, okay, because they are functions. They are real functions, just that they are methods. All right. Now, there's one called swap case. This particular swap case in Africa, only 5 people have used it before. Only 5 people. Only 5 people. And last year, 3 of them died. So it's only 2 people who know how to use it today. Only 2 people. So I want to see if you are one of them. I know I'm one of them. So I'm looking for the next person. Okay. So this swap case, what we use it for is really, really interesting. Okay. It's really, really interesting. What this particular swap case does is that it swaps uppercase to lowercase and vice versa. So let's try something. Let's say hello world like this. And let's say dot swap case. You see, it's a valid method, valid string method. So when we run this, you can see what happened to it. This is called swap case. So from time to time, we use it. It can swap a case, and it is really, really interesting. Okay, so we talked about, okay, let me come here and let me also put my hello world in this form with lowercase h, hello world. So when we run this, we get the normal hello world because it's a swap case, okay? So just remember this as a changing case method, changing case string method, and a time will come that you use it. Now, this particular one that is called case fold is really, really interesting. What it does is that it converts all characters to lowercase, similar to lower. So this particular case fold, I want you to type case fold in the chat. Don't forget the parentheses. Let me see you type case fold. Okay, case fold. So this case fold, yeah, dot case fold. It's also a change case method for strings. And whenever we say methods, they belong to an object. So they're talking about strings. It converts all characters to lowercase, similar to lower. So if you've used dot lower before, case fold is a sister to dot lower. But case fold is more aggressive. The same way some sisters are calm and others from the same mother and father, but are more aggressive. And they are used for case insensitive comparison. case insensitive comparison. What does that mean? All right. So the same way we used dot lower, the same way we use dot lower. Thank you, Benedict. Okay, I don't know. Timothy, is it true? I don't know what Benedict is saying. All right. So you can see that the same way we use dot lower, we can also say dot case fold. This is also one. Now, case fold is more aggressive than lower. So what is actually the difference between case fold and lower? This one particularly is useful for handling special characters in certain languages. What this means is that dot lower simply converts uppercase to lowercase, but doesn't handle language specific cases. This means there are certain situations and certain characters that are non-English that dot lower will not recognize and dot lower cannot convert. But case fold, which is a sister to lower, goes further and can convert cases in different languages and even symbols into lowercase. It is more powerful, making it better for case insensitive string matching. Whenever you want to match strings, okay? So let's say in a real application here, instead of using dot lower, some people's passwords will still not be working, even though you are forcing all of them to be lower because of the special characters that we use in passwords. There are some special characters that we use in passwords that if you want to compare with dot lower, force all of them to be dot lower before you compare, it will still not work because they are not English letters or characters. They are from different languages and they are symbols. Now, case fold is more powerful. Whether you are a symbol or you are from China or you are from Indonesia or Afghanistan, it will still convert you to lowercase. You see? So this S sharp or this symbol here is called sharp S or S sharp. And this S sharp, in lowercase, it is SS. It is SS. Let me copy it. Let me copy it. Let me copy it. And let me copy it. I'm going to copy it from here. It's a symbol. Let's bring it into our program here. And let's just call it a normal text and say this is that symbol. Let's call text.lower and let's print .lower on it. When we run this, we are still going to see this is that symbol. All right, so .lower couldn't handle this because it doesn't recognize it. Now, let me type hello world like this. You can see that .lower can work on it. It has no problem. All the English letters, it has no problem. All right, it has no problem at all. Let me call case fold here. Case fold will also work on it. It also has no problem. You can see that it has the same output. And so under normal circumstance, you will not even know that they are different. They all do the same work, but it is only when we meet foreigners that you see the difference. Dot Lower couldn't handle this. But let's see if Casefold can do it. Do you think Casefold can handle this case? What do you think? Do you think Casefold can handle this case? All right. All right. So when you run this, you can see that this is SS. So it converted it to lower, and even the hard one, it was able to handle it. It was able to handle it. This means if you are actually building an authentication system, Casefold is more, is a better method to use for handling characters and passwords because it is stronger and it can force everything to appear in the lowercase. And if the user inputs the correct version, it will match all of them properly. Properly. All right. So I want you to list all the string methods we've covered today. I want you to list all the string methods we've covered today in the chat for me. All the string methods we've covered today in the chat. And this is just the introduction to string methods. This is an important lesson that will make an impact in your Python mastery training. Python mastery training. And these methods, you need to remember them and they will help solve a lot of problems. They will help solve a lot of problems. All right. I'm going to thank you all. All right. I'm going to give you an assignment for you to work on a different string method. And next week, we will reinforce some of the special ones here. This means that the examination that we are going to have next week, if you didn't come on time, you didn't hear that, we are going to have some very interesting situations that you'll be forced to use a particular change case method to solve. I want it to go down a little before we revive it. I don't want us to work on it immediately because it is too easy. It's too easy and too simple. And so the method I want you to research on in preparation for next week is the join. So do some work on join and an assignment will be shared, not right now, but will be shared, and you have to use join. So just try and solve it, try and do some research on join. Next week, we are going to cover them well, and we are going to understand them properly. Okay, we are going to understand them properly. And they are very, very important methods that we are going to learn and revise on, and they will be used to solve a lot of problems. So today's lesson is going to be simple, just to set a foundation for what we are going to be doing. And these methods are important. They're important, especially what we have yet to cover. They will help you really understand your Python very, very well. So I want to thank you all for for your dedication to learning, your seriousness, the hard work, and everything. It will pay off, okay? Again, work in secret and be glorified in public. Let your success be the noise. Let your success be the noise. And if you have any question, feel free to put in the chat. If there's any part you didn't understand, you want me to go over, feel free to put it in the chat and I'll do that. But if there's no question, I want to thank you all once again. And we have a lot to learn. Next week, I want to see you all gathered. Let's not miss the Python classes. We will need it. Okay. We are learning simple things, but that's how we learn Python. You learn single concepts and you put them together to solve problems. So let's keep refreshing our memories on Python and we will be very, very good. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I'll see you in the next lesson. I wish you all the best. Have a wonderful evening and bye-bye.